Is there $500 worth of difference between this microphone and this microphone? Oh yeah. What's happening, Boot Junkies? Mike Delgadio here, back with another video on home studio setup for voiceover. And we have another mic comparison, mic shootout. I got a number of microphones from a fellow booth junkie, and one of them I didn't know anything about. I should have known something about this microphone, but I didn't know anything about this microphone. And I started to read up about this microphone and started to listen to this microphone. And actually, well, for the price, I shouldn't be like, oh, I'm super surprised about it. But you know what? I'm really surprised and impressed because I had no knowledge of this microphone. And it's this one right here. This is the Shure KSM32 cardioid condenser microphone. And I've got it here next to my Neumann TLM103 for reference. Now, like I said, when this person sent me this microphone, I didn't know anything about it. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll give it a shot. He says, you've heard this microphone. You've heard this microphone a bunch of times, probably. If you listen to public radio, you'll know that Ira Glass uses this microphone. Oh, okay. He's got some credibility. And also Sarah Koenig of the Serial podcast. She uses a KSM32. Now, I find that interesting because when I think of, and I think they're on different networks, but when I think of NPR, I always think of the Neumann sound because NPR is known for using Neumann U87s. It's like their microphone. No compression, no effects, just straight up Neumann U87 microphone. And this is not a U87, but it's got a Neumann sound to it, this Neumann TLM103. And so, interestingly, I figured, well, let's give this KSM32 a listen and see how it sounds. And so we're just going to do a shootout in between these two microphones. When I did my first test on this and I was setting up and I did a recording between this, when I was switching back and forth, I actually couldn't tell. I sort of set up a blind back and forth between the two microphones, and for me they sounded extremely similar. To me, that's the way it sounded to me. Now, the KSM32 has a couple of additional features that the TLM103 doesn't, and half the price. This is $1,000-ish, and the KSM32 is $500. I think it's $499. But for half the price, I couldn't tell the difference. So for me, this is like a real. Now, I'm sure there are people like, you've never heard of the KSM32? Oh my God, everybody knows about the KSM32. Well, I hadn't. So maybe some of you hadn't either. So for me, this is like a sleeper mic because I was blown away by how it sounded and how the two compared. Let's talk about the features of the KSM32 quickly because it is slightly different than the Neumann. The Neumann, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that this is just straight microphone. It's got no features. It's got no buttons, no anything. It's just a plain old condenser cardioid pattern microphone. A really good one. I think it sounds great for my voice. I really love this microphone, but it doesn't have any features to it. Doesn't no roll off, no padding, no patterns, no nothing. The KSM32 is a single pattern, single diaphragm cardioid pattern. So these both share the same pattern, and this one has a couple of additional switches on the back. And it's interesting what those switches, how they portray those switches. The first one is there's a 15 dB pad. So that's like on many microphones, a pad just means it lowers the sensitivity of the mic so that you can put a louder sound into it before that microphone sort of overloads its circuitry with, so it just makes it less sensitive. And this one has a 15 dB pad. So that means it will, at the same volume, it will be 15 decibels quieter when it goes down through into your signal chain. So super loud sources. You're screaming, you're recording a jet engine, you got this thing stuck inside a kick drum, something like that. That's when you'd use the pad. Now, this one also has a bass roll-off switch, which is common. We've seen that in a number of microphones, but this one has two different settings on the back. One is so it can be flat, or it's got a steep cutoff, and that is 15 decibels per octave. I got my sheet here. Hold on. Let me make sure I say that right. Yeah, 15 decibels per octave at 80 hertz. So at 80 hertz, essentially there's a filter, and everything below 80 hertz, it's sort of like a wall. Everything below 80 hertz, it falls off really super fast. Now, there's another switch, another point on that switch, and it shows a shallower roll-off. And that one is 6 dB of attenuation per octave, starting at 115 hertz. So a little bit higher up the frequency, but it's a gentle slope. Instead of being like a hard cut at 80 hertz, it's a gentle roll-off. And they say that is specifically to counteract the proximity effect. So if you're recording an instrument, often you want to get rid of the proximity effect so that your instrument doesn't sound muddy. But for us, this instrument, sometimes we want to get up there and we want that proximity effect so we can add some boom and authority to our voice. And sometimes they'll tell you to get up there and eat that mic so that you can really get some authority into your voice. But you can also, if you didn't want to have that tonality change when you got up close to the microphone, you can set the switch. I'm going to flip it now. So we're going to switch that to the proximity effect roll-off. And now as I get closer to this microphone, we should hear that I'm still loud and crisp and clear as I get up nice and close to that microphone, but I shouldn't be nearly as bassy as I was. So let's just run through the three switches again, see if I can do this without knocking my whole setup over. Sorry for any pops in the mics. I'm so close to it. So this is with the shallow, gentle roll-off, the proximity effect reducer, and then this is the 80 hertz cutoff. You should notice a slight change in bass. Little bit, I don't know, it's different. I'm not sure if there's more bass or less bass. This one should be a little less bassy, I would guess. I don't know. It's hard to tell because it's two different types of roll-off, but you can hear the difference for it. So this is the 80 hertz roll-off. This is the 115 hertz, more gentle roll-off, and then we'll switch it over to a nice flat setting, and you should hear a lot of that bass come back in. But that's what the proximity effect does. It adds that bass, and so this microphone with that one slope, the idea is you can get rid of that proximity effect so that the EQ, the way my voice sounds at this distance, at about 5 inches, shouldn't change that much if I engage that 15. Do I get it right? That 115 hertz gentle roll off. So now if I'm at this distance and if I get up really close to it, you should see that bass doesn't come in quite so much, so that I can be nice and intimate, I can be far away, and I don't have to juggle the EQ settings. So during the same session, I can do that. And maybe you just want to overcome that all the time. Maybe you don't want to have that bass in your voice. It's not flattering, it sounds muddy, anything like that. That switch can take it out for you. So that's what that switch does. You can also do it somewhat in EQ down the line in your VSTs if you had a microphone like this. But we'll see that this microphone does get. Sorry, I'm going to pop this mic up front, I'm pretty sure. But this microphone does get very muscular and bassy when you get up there right up close to it. And sorry if I pop it. This mic is super easy to pop, the Neumann is. The KSM32, it says it's got an integrated pop filter. I would still use a popper stopper in front of this microphone because I can see the capsule. I can see the diaphragm in there, so I'd still be afraid of popping it. But this one is like transparent. Air goes right through it. Anyway, so when you get right up onto this microphone, you can hear that there's definitely a bassiness to it. Love the way this sounds when I'm right up on it. I love the way it sounds, but it does get bassy. It sounds different between this distance and this distance. And so that's the proximity effect. So, as I've switched back and forth, have you noticed a significant tonality change to it. I will say that during my initial listening to it, I expected there to be a difference. Like maybe this was suited towards higher voices and this one was suited towards bassier voices or something like that. But as I was switching back and forth, for me, it sounded very, very similar, much more similar than some of the other ones that try and emulate Neumann sound that we've listened to. And this one, I was super happy with it. So I definitely think that if you're in the market for a Neumann, but you maybe can't afford the $1,000 to drop on a 103, that maybe you give something like the KSM32 a fair shake if you can get one to listen to test. I love the way the highs are. I think it's a very smooth sounding mic. I feel like the mid-range is just right. There's no excessive bass in it. I feel like this is a really nice, neutral, great vocal microphone. And do these two compare fairly well to each other? Is there $500 worth of difference between this microphone and this microphone? That's not necessarily for me to say, but that's for you when you hear it. Would you be just as happy talking into this microphone and getting this sound that as you hear it, as you would talking into this microphone and getting this sound as you hear it? Is there that much of a difference? These are going into the same preamp. The gain is set, however, to try and match up the gain. So is there $500 worth of difference? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. So you could save yourself $500. So if you had a $1,000 budget, you could either blow it on a mic, or you could get the mic and your cable and your interface and everything you needed. Maybe even a little acoustic treatment for your room. You could take that $1,000 budget and get something like a KSM32 instead of dropping it all on a Neumann. Knowing that this one there's some, prominent people out there that use this as their vocal mic. Take it for what it's worth. I really hope that helps. So now go find yourself. Maybe you can find one of these somewhere. Maybe you can give it a shot. I don't know, but you got to get a mic. You got to get a mic. You got to get recording so that you can record something amazing. Hope this helps. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks.